So, I'm gonna just go ahead and open the show. It is the Ace Micheals show, yo, and that is what's up. You know, I'm really happy. Let me just get this off my chest and off my heart. I'm really happy that we're finally starting to see here in America the political process work the way that it's meant to. We're starting to finally see America do what it's supposed to do, which is not make the right decision and then act like a baby afterwards. That's America. That's how we roll, man. So just so you know, we're showing the world this is America. This is what we do. Anyway, that's on that. If you have a thought on what's going on with the protests and the politics and all that in the world, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us. It's acemichaelsshow@yahoo.com, or you can email our old email, our traditional, our original email, the organic one, is beyondthebuzz@yahoo.com, or you can call. You can call and we can schedule to have you on the show. You can actually speak to the world on your own. It's 702-540-3498. Today, we are going to talk to a beautiful girl who is doing it like a boss. I mean, she is on top of it, like it's here, and she's like, you know what I mean? So welcome to the show, Bianca Hernandez. How you doing, darling?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm excellent.
You are excellent. You are that. I think that no truer words have ever been spoken. So tell us a little bit about your story so the audience knows. Of course, I got to do research, but they didn't. So tell us a little brief on you.
Okay, well, I grew up in Oxnard. I've lived here my whole life. I was raised here, and it's just amazing to actually see, you know, actually going to LA and the difference between Oxnard. The people out in LA, you know, they're doing their thing. They're on a more fast pace. Here in Oxnard, it's more like, you know, we're doing our thing, but at a slower pace, you know, and
right.
Get with it. If not, you know, you're not in the industry. You need to be able to network, connect with people. And that's what they don't tell you here in Oxnard. Like, you know, oh, just you stay with the same crowd. LA, you have to be able to, you know, talk to other people that you don't know, you know, be able to mingle with new people. That's how you network, and that's how you get to know and see different personalities. You know, the culture is very different. It's a melting pot, you know, and here in Oxnard you see Latinos. It's the same people you get comfortable with rather than, you know, talking to other people that, you know, are not Latinos. And that's what's hard for some people to get out and break out of their shell and talk to someone that they've never thought they can talk to. No. So I love Fullerton. I'm studying communication, broadcast journalism. So I'm also studying Spanish media, so I'm getting a certificate in that. And I just want to be able to be the voice of Latina. You know, I was born and raised in Oxnard, so with that being said, my first language was English. So as a reporter, I want to be able to be in like English market and, you know, let that be known. I would also like to be in Univision, but as a Latina, it's more powerful being in the English market and being able to fluently speak in English. And that way you get your English market and also the Latino market.
That is awesome beyond compare. Now, you mentioned Latina, and are you aware that, like, there really wasn't a Latina entertainment boom until J-Lo recently? Like, yeah. That's really hard to believe, but, I mean, she really burst the door open for a lot of female entertainers that were Latinas to really get a spot, because it just didn't happen until that Selena movie. That it was almost like there was white America, black America, and gray area America. Like there's just no one talked about Latin America, and there was this whole thing going on where you could be a Latin superstar, like you could have 20 million followers in Mexico and you still could not get on the radio in America. But that door had to break down, and I'm really happy that it did. I could totally see you doing broadcast journalism. And so how far are you from that right now? Like, is that going to be 3 more years, or do you think 3 more months for you?
I'm at my last year at Cal State Fullerton.
Nice.
I'm in the process of, learning, because there's a lot to learn. It doesn't come naturally. Being in front of a camera, it's very difficult to be able to project the story that's being told, whether it's hard news or soft news. So you have to be able to look natural in camera, and that's not something that is built overnight. You need to be working on your stories, working on different categories, whether it's, a sports game, whether it's, a new opening for an amusement park, or if it's in something, maybe a tragedy, like a car accident, the freeway. You have to be able to project your emotions and make it be able to be seen on camera, actually, where people can actually in tune to what you're saying, and they say, wow, she looks natural on camera, but she's being able to project such a tragic story live.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned real news, hard news. What about this new thing called fake news? What are your thoughts on that?
Fake news, like what, on social media?
Yeah.
Is that what
yeah.
Like
this might be fake news, actually, but anyway, go.
Well, that's, fake news a lot of times when it's not a credible source, whatever's seen online, people think it's, oh, this is happening, this artist did this, without actual, a credible source being backed up with it. And people, when they see something, they believe it at first sight without doing any research. And that's how that gets out of hand, because people tell their friend, look, this is what happened, and then it starts being actual news where people say, wait, hold up, it gets out of control. And that's when conflict occurs, because people post it as actual facts without credible sources,
Sure, absolutely. Now, I got a question. Yesterday, we had the inauguration of the president, and I had no interest in watching it whatsoever, so I didn't. However, because I'm in this social media business, I'm online almost too much, and I keep getting these little posts, like live video from the inauguration, live clips of a speech, live clips of a protest. So really, I didn't have to watch CNN to get the same information that I probably would have gotten had I watched CNN. And I actually, to be honest, probably I got more actual information than on CNN, where I get all the commentary, and then I get Joe's ideal of what Bob just said. So, do you think, Bianca, that there will ever become a time where more people will get their news from the internet than watching CBS, ABC, NBC, CNN?
Great question. With all the technology, social media advances, that people go ahead and look up and can get breaking news online quickly, that is something, as a journalist, we've been having to adapt as multimedia. We have to be able to, people want to see something fast, but the thing about journalists is that they're not getting all the details on it. They're just getting the glimpse of the story. And a journalist, they're never going to be able to replace a journalist, because we have to write from the beginning to the end. And there's always new facts coming and added to the story. The news is not just, oh, so-and-so did this. There's more to it. How did they do it? When did they do it? Why did they do it? All those details. That's, as a journalist from CNN, you can get from watching it. Yeah, you want something quick online. Oh, this happened, breaking news. But that's what the internet does. It gives you something short, quick, for you to be entertained. With the short spam people have, they want something quick. They don't want to read an article and all the details. They want to know the main important part of the story.
Right. Now, I got a question for you, because as a journalist, I've always been curious about this. Do you ever watch the mainstream media? and see someone like Anderson Cooper does an interview, and you're sitting there at home going, why didn't you ask him this? And why didn't you ask him this? This would have been a better question to ask.
That's a great question. Sometimes when you're doing an interview, you go ahead and ask the questions as they pop up in the head, and then later you say, wow, why didn't I ask this question? But that happens everywhere, as the same as like when you're having an argument. Sometimes you tell what you're thinking at first, and then you think, oh, why didn't I even tell her this? Right. Back after, and that's just how it happens. Sometimes, the great way to do it maybe might be make a list of the questions you want to ask, and make sure before you get on the interview, because sometimes you can get an interview, but it's unexpected, right? And so you have to ask the questions on the spot. But a great way would be to do your research on the person you're interviewing, what they do for a living, maybe not personal questions, but just questions like an upcoming movie they're working on, those detailed questions you want to get a hold of, rather than just asking them questions on the spot, unexpected.
Wow. Now, I feel a little disadvantaged, because when I introduced you and when I met you originally, I really thought you were pursuing modeling. But it seems like you're really going for journalism, and modeling was kind of a stepping stone. Is that where things are at with you?
I do love modeling. It's always been a passion of mine since I was 6 years old.
Wow.
It's kind of hard to combine the two, because, you have to pick your career as a journalist, and you have to be seen as a journalist, and people sometimes are like, oh, I thought you liked modeling, but it's kind of hard, to actually combine the two, because people either see you as a model or a journalist. They don't really see, the model journalist, And I do have goals of being in Miss Universe, so I have to actually set a plan when I want to do that, and then when I want to start my career as a journalist. Do I want to do Miss Universe first, and then later on accomplish everything in modeling, and then get serious with my journalistic career? Because, as a journalist, you can't really say, oh, you know what, I'm going to do Miss Universe. You kind of have to put that aside, because it takes a lot of your time.
And those are sophisticated choices. Now, without giving anything away, you strike me as someone who's under 30. So, do you think that there's a lot of young people who are making these more savvy decisions because of the exposure to the internet or social media? Or do you think, I guess what I'm asking, do you think people are making smarter decisions now because they get educated a lot younger than, say, 20 years ago?
I don't think it really has to do with, the time they get educated. The decision for someone has to do with who they are, what they see themselves in the future, what goals they have. And that's the same with everyone. Sometimes someone can make a decision that I'm like, at your age, you shouldn't be making that decision. But when, matures, younger or older, it takes time for people to actually think about their decisions. As far as me, when I make a decision, I think about the outcome, the benefit, everything that comes along with my decisions, rather than some people just make it without thinking about it. And it's that's where it's come in place with the new generation. A lot of people have the thought of, I can do this without nothing happening because I'm young, I can do anything I want. But no, there's consequences to every decision we make, and we have to actually think about, what are the consequences? Are they going to benefit me, or are they not?
That's right on. That is real talk. And if people want to contact you, Bianca, how would they do that? What do they need to do? If you want to reach out, contact Bianca on the www. What happens next?
They can go ahead and contact me through my email, which is hernandezbianca82@yahoo.com. I also have my Instagram, which is Bianca_Hernandez18. And then I have a blog, but that's just like with all the fashion going on, so I don't really have contact on that. But yeah, they can contact me through Instagram, through my Facebook.
And that's pretty. And that's what's up. Hey man, it's the Ace Michael Show. I was live with Bianca Hernandez today, and something tells me this is a historic day that we'll be able to look back in our archive and say, wow, she was there then, and now look at her. And that is what's up. You guys know what I say every show. Live the life you love the life you live. I want to thank my guest, Bianca Hernandez, for being on the show today. And I want to thank you for watching, liking, and sharing. All right, everybody, get out there and do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.